Hello, everyone. Kartik Krishnaiyer here for the Florida Squeeze. And the numbers that are coming in early voting from Miami-Dade County are the most alarming numbers in the entire country for the Democrats. There is no major urban county in the country. No county over 1 million people, no county over 2 million people like Miami-Dade County that is voting so heavily Republican this year. In fact, it is now the most Republican urban city in the country. Now, it's not probably the most Republican urban area because neighboring Broward County remains more Democratic, although we've talked about the Republican trend in Broward County recently, still safely Democratic. It looks like the Democrats will win Broward by at least 20 points, if not more, in this cycle. But Miami-Dade County, really bad week for Democrats there. And so we're going to talk about Miami, the city of Miami, and the surrounding areas within Miami-Dade County. They are now effectively the capital of MAGAstan because there is no place that is more MAGA, that is more Trump-friendly, Trump-centric than Miami-Dade County, which is, by the way, a county with a supermajority of minority voters, which also indicates the problems the Democratic Party is having with minority voters who are especially males. And before listeners and viewers say, "Well, they're just Cubans there," no, it's a lot deeper than that. I got pushback in 2020 when I was talking about the problems we Democrats were having in South Florida and in Central Florida with Hispanic voters, and I was told I was imagining things because what Hispanic would vote for Donald Trump? People who are in the political bubble sometimes don't understand this stuff, and I think we're in the middle of a realignment where maybe gender, income, and college education are becoming bigger indicators of your partisan preference than race. So let's go on Miami-Dade County. So for years, Democratic consultants and operatives thought that identity politics was the way forward. And they believed that making race and ethnicity the basis of political preference, partisan preference, would give them a permanent demographic advantage. And quite honestly, this is not a new concept. Democrats, even in urban machines in the last century, really banked Irish American votes in particular, but also Italian American votes. German Americans tended to vote Republican, but in the big cities, there was this concept of identity politics, and then eventually African Americans also, who flipped from Republican to Democrat between the 1920s and the 1960s, right? Gradual shift. Although you could say that Harry Truman's appeals to them in 1948 made all the difference in that election in some key northern industrial states. That's why Truman beat Dewey. So there was an assumption Miami-Dade County would overtake Broward County as the most Republican county, the most Democratic county in Florida among big urban counties because of the demographic advantage of Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade being an 80% minority county, 80% African American or Hispanic or Asian American. Broward is majority non-white also, but not, the numbers are more like 60-40 or 55-45. So this was playing out as identity was the key driver. And in 2016, Broward County gave Hillary Clinton 66% of the vote to 31 for Trump, and Miami-Dade gave Clinton 64% to 34 for Trump. And the difference in raw votes, Broward County gave a 293,000 vote margin to Clinton. Dade gave a 291,000 vote margin. So very, very close, and it seemed inevitable that this flip would occur. But then something happened. Donald Trump became president, and he did not act like a traditional Republican. He acted more like a Latin American machismo strongman. And that MAGA characteristic appeals to men, as we've talked about time and again, under a certain age, and it appealed to a lot of exiles from Latin American countries who liked right-wing strongmen in the countries they fled from. They may have fled from socialist governments and liked the right-wing strongmen. There may have been some leftists who fled from but liked the socialist or left-wing strong man. And you gradually saw this kind of shift begin to play out in Miami-Dade County in 2018. I was working and going every day into Brickell in 2018. That year, I was working there, and I saw the shift firsthand. I began to see people who had been very people and types of people who had been very supportive of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton begin to kind of hedge on Andrew Gillum and on the Democrats down ballot and on Democrats for other offices. And I thought, maybe this is a byproduct of their identification of Gillum as a socialist. But really, where I saw the difference was with Bill Nelson, who had done so much for the United States and Florida's relationship with Latin America, that suddenly Bill Nelson was being seen as kind of like this classic elite Democrat, and Rick Scott had, who, by the way, learned Spanish and did a lot of work, outreach, and maybe this has really benefited all Republicans in Miami-Dade County, did a lot of outreach, and suddenly, not only was Scott popular and Nelson and the Democrats unpopular, but also the talking points of the Scott campaign around freedom and free enterprise and all sorts of things, by the way, that MAGA doesn't practice. I mean, in fact, I keep pointing out to people who say, oh, they're a conservative or they're a free market person, that Donald Trump is the most secular, anti-free market president we have had. He's definitely the most secular president we've ever had in American history, and he is also the most anti-free market, capitalist president of my lifetime, at least. But the policy specifics don't matter. It was just kind of the feel of things. So we see Nelson lose in a very close U.S. Senate race to Rick Scott because the margins in Miami-Dade County had been cut. And then we get to 2020, and not only do we see the shock of Election Day for many people, it wasn't a shock for me. I saw it coming and I had predicted it and got pushback. I mean, I got such abuse on Twitter from other Democrats who were living in a glass bubble or something, saying, oh, well, why would any Latino vote for Trump? Not understanding, like, not everybody is hyper political and getting caught up on him saying things about Mexican rapists, right? I saw throughout 2019, as I continued to work in Miami, MAGA become a cultural phenomenon. More flags, more Trump-centric items around town, and of course, Trump lives up the road in West Palm Beach or in Palm Beach, but you don't see this sort of phenomena in Palm Beach County, and you certainly don't see it in Broward. And you don't see it in the Orlando area, although I began to observe it on my trips to Osceola County. That's why I knew that this was not limited to Latinos in Miami-Dade County, that it was going on in Osceola and probably in Orange to a certain extent. And as we learned on election night, it spread all the way to Texas and other places. Trump's appeal among Latinos. But here's where we get from there. We are in a position where MAGA is now a cultural phenomenon. It is now a statement of identity among many of the Hispanics, many of the Latinos in the Miami-Dade County area. And you've got a situation where you're getting radicalized politics, you're getting radicalized rhetoric, you are getting hardcore right-wing populist messaging all the way down ballot from Republicans in Miami-Dade County. Now, if you think the MAGA movement is really bad in other parts of the country, and you think about people like J.D. Vance and some of the members of Congress, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lauren Boeberts. There are dozens of elected officials now in Miami-Dade County who have become MAGA adjacent, who have either adjusted their ideology to be Trump-like, adjusted their rhetoric to be Trump-like, and or adjusted their entire worldview to be Trump-like. And again, this is a county with over 2.5 million people. It's not rural Georgia. It's not some part of Colorado, some part of, sparsely populated Colorado. It is a major urban center in the United States, one of the big business centers in the United States. And it is now, to me, the most MAGA-centric place, the capital of MAGAstan, if you will. Trump may be living up the road 60 miles in Palm Beach, but the capital of MAGAstan is Miami. And in the early vote right now, what we're seeing is Democrats stabilize as we record this on Sunday night after the polls have closed on Sunday, October 27th. We're seeing Democrats stabilize across the state. The bad numbers of the week have now become stagnant. Democrats down 11 points statewide, which is terrible, right? Awful. It's worse than it was in 2022. But it's stabilized, right? The Republican run on the polls is over, except in Miami-Dade County. So as I track the voting in the urban counties, I'll see we get a slight gain in Duval. We get a slight gain in Pinellas. We get a slight gain in Orange. We get, consistent gains all the time in Broward. They're all being offset by Miami-Dade, the gain for the Republicans. The entire statewide gain for Democrats the last 2 days across the state has been offset completely by Republican gains in Miami-Dade County. It is now the center of MAGAstan, and this is a theme. We're talking about it from an electoral standpoint. This is a theme I want to explore more from a cultural and political standpoint, or cultural and legislative standpoint, in the coming weeks and months after the election.